You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearne, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearne here, your host, back with another episode. This episode is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. My guest today, wow, I'm super excited for this one. Been trying to get this episode for a while. Finally got a chance to sit down with him. My guest was inducted, funnily enough. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame back in 2017. An incredible entrepreneur in the hospitality industry, opening up over 500 restaurants in his 50-year career, and continues to open up restaurants with his concepts now. Please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Hal Smith. Down in, we are in Norman, right? We're in Norman city limits.
Oklahoma.
Down in Norman, Oklahoma, with Mr. Hal Smith. If you don't know the name, you'll know a lot of his restaurants. I'm not going to name all of them because there's a lot, but I'm going to name some of them. Charleston's, Louis, Pub W, Hefner Grill, the Winston, Red Rock Canyon. So definitely check out the website, halsmith.com, and you can see a lot of the great foods, locations that he has. I'm sure you've eaten at one without even knowing it. Really appreciate your time. Really looking forward to this and sharing your story. How did it start? I guess were you born and raised Oklahoman?
Yeah, I grew up I was born in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I grew up down there. My dad was a superintendent, manager of the lodge and cabins down there. It's a beautiful lake. And I was a young guy. I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old during that time, and I had a chance to go to the lodge with him quite often.
Yeah.
And they had a real nice restaurant there. They had a nice bar there. And so I got a little flavor and I didn't even realize I enjoyed it so much. And I hung out with the cooks, and I'd go in the kitchen and I'd bust tables. In those days, it was okay to bust tables at like 8 years old.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I got my first taste. And then moved to Oklahoma City shortly after that, and graduated from U.S. Grant High School. Met a lot of good people there, and then I came to OU, and I started in the restaurant business here in Norman. It was called a Cross the Street restaurant. It was a hamburger joint serving onion rings. I think we were the largest Coors account in the state at that time, and had a lot of fun doing that. And I was in my mind, I wanted to be a lawyer, and
okay.
I had, with a couple of people that I knew that were lawyers, and I always had high respect for them. And I went home one day, I'll never forget this, and my mother said, what are you going to do with your life? And I said, I'm going to take the LSAT and try to get into law school. And she said, her words were ringing my mind today. She said, are you going to have fun being a lawyer? And I went, no, I don't know. I think a job is a job, and I'm not sure you're supposed to have fun working. She said, you better take another look. She goes, what do you really like to do? I said, well, I like school, and I really enjoy working in the restaurant that I'm in. And she said, why don't you give that a go? And I said, it's not a bad thought. And so that was 1971, right in the heart of Vietnam. I knew if I dropped out of school, I'd have to be drafted and go serve in my country. But I ran out of money basically, and I put myself through school basically.
Okay.
Bought my car, insurance, everything, and I dropped out of school to make money. And sure enough, I got my draft notice.
Yeah.
And I went down to take my physical, and I'd had asthma all through my childhood, and I flunked the physical. And good or bad, I was free to go to work, and I ended up working full-time in the restaurant business for a year or two. And then the guys who owned it across the street asked me to open up the Cross Timber Steakhouse. And that was here in Norman also. And that was a long, long time ago, but I opened up the first one. And I at that time, the hot concept was steak and ale.
Okay.
And it was in Oklahoma City, and there was two open in Oklahoma City, and I would take my girlfriend to dinner there, and I kind of got some ideas, and I ended up hiring some of their cooks and some of their waiters, and some of the recipes came with them, and we opened up, and great success. And then I moved to Amarillo, Texas, opened up number 2, and great success there too. And one day I was back working the door here in Norman, and a gentleman walked in with two gentlemen actually. They'd been playing polo. They had an old polo field here. And one of them said, by the way, I was shaking hands, and he said, what's your name? I said, Hal Smith. He said, I had the steak, and it was marinated, and boy, it tasted a lot like steak and ale. And I'm sitting there going, I'm kind of smiling. I go, boy, it's real close, And he said, my name's Norm Brinker, and I'm the founder of Steak and Ale. And he goes, I thought he was either going to hit me or sue me. I didn't know what was going to happen. And he said, I don't mind being ripped off if it's done with class.
Yeah.
And he said, I think you've done this with class. And he said, here's my card. If you ever get tired of doing this, sure like to have you go to work for Steak and Ale. And I thought, wow, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And so I went back to work, and about a year later, I got married, and I knew in the back of my mind everything that I had learned thus far was through hit and miss and the school of hard knocks, so to speak. So I thought to myself, I've got to go get an education in the real business world. Mm-hmm. And so I drove to Dallas, unbeknownst to the people that were owning Cross Timbers, and I called Norm Brinker, and I said, I'm the guy that you met at Cross Timbers. He goes, I remember you. What's your name again? I said, Hal Smith. He said, yeah, come on in, we'll interview you. So that was in 1973. Honestly, I'd just gotten married, and he said, we're going to hire you. He said, and I'd only lived in Amarillo and Norman and Ardmore at that time. And he said, where would you like to live geographically? And I said, I'll go anywhere, any place, anytime. I just want to go where the opportunities are the greatest. And he said, well, we're going to send you to Columbus, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's fine. So, we didn't have furniture. We didn't have anything. I had no credit. Moved to Columbus, Ohio. We bought some lawn chairs that we sat in, and we got an air mattress that we blew up, and we slept there until we got credit. So I paid my dues, and I went through all the training that they had from bottom to top. And one day they came to me and said, we'd like for you to be a general manager of your first store here in Columbus. And I opened up a brand new store. A lot of fun, learned a lot, and didn't really look back too much. And I never dreamed what would happen after that. And it's been what I call the American dream, and quite a ride.
Yeah.
They said, we want you to move to Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan is not my favorite in my mind. It was not a favorite city that I wanted to live in, but I thought, I told them I wanted to go anywhere, any place. So I moved to Detroit right in the middle of a recession, and this is in 1975, 76, and it was a tough deal, but I had to open up brand new stores. So I opened up 3 or 4. And that was in the middle of the disco era. And so I didn't tell Steak and Ale what I was doing, but in the bars, I made them a little bigger. I got the approval from Dallas, the home office, and we opened up our first disco. And we had a big mirror ball, and I hired a disc jockey, and you could not get in the place. It was quite something. That's when Donna Summer and KC and the Sunshine Band and all that, they were all popular. The Bee Gees, and we opened up, and lo and behold, we were the highest volume store that Steak and Ale had, especially in alcohol.
Yeah.
And then we opened up number 2 and number 3. The chairman of the company, Norm Brinker, the guy I was telling you about, flew into town unannounced with his daughter, because they weren't in the liquor business. They were in the food business. Mm-hmm. And so he flew in. I picked him up at the airport. He said, I want to go see your stores. This is for lunch. So naturally, lunch was lunch, and it was all food. And he goes, how do you run such big liquor business? And I said, well, let's come back tonight. So we showed up about 9:30 or 10. He had his daughter with him who was playing tennis, and she was pretty hip. See, Norman didn't drink, and I didn't know if he ever danced or not either, one of those kind of guys. Great guy. So we walk in, and the mirror's going around. You couldn't get in. It was so full. And so his daughter, Brenda, said, Dad, this is so cool. Let's dance. And I'm sitting here going, wow, here's a guy that doesn't drink, and she's asking him to dance.
Yeah.
So he got on the floor, and they start dancing. And he comes back to me and he said, I hadn't had this feeling in steak and ale in a long time. He said, you've got the chemistry going with all your help. Mm-hmm. People are smiling, having fun, and enjoying the food and the beverage. And he goes, I sure like what you're doing. And that was about the time I was having my first child, and he had complications and had to stay in the hospital. We had no insurance. The company didn't have insurance. And I'm telling you this because it kind of builds up to what happened to me later. Uh-huh. And Norm said, Hal, what would you change in the company if you could change something? I said, I'd sure look at your insurance program, and we need to put some kind of a policy in there that covers pregnancy and birth. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, well, I told him about my son. And he said, how much did it cost you? And I said, $6,000. In those days, $6,000 was a lot of money. Yeah. I didn't have it, and I had to borrow it. And he said, $6,000. He goes, boy, I didn't know. He said, I thought we had that insurance. I said, no. He sent me a check for $6,000 and implemented the policy. Yeah. All in 1 week. And I thought, this is the kind of guy that I want to be. I want the integrity of this guy. And I also enjoyed working for the company and for Norman. I went, and I'm telling you this because it is part of a journey. I went from Columbus to Dayton, back to Columbus, to Detroit, Michigan. From Detroit, they gave me a 12-store territory. I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. From Nashville, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I had 50 stores that I was overseeing. One day, I was talking to my wife, and we were getting ready they were going to move me to Greensboro, North Carolina to open up some new stores. And I told her how much fun I was having, and I got a phone call from Dallas. Norman was on the phone. He said, hey, need all the area directors coming in. We're going to make some changes in the company. And I said, all right. So I showed up. We had a meeting, and then afterwards he said, Hal, I want you to come out to the house. I want to have dinner with you and the then president, Lou Neeb. So I did, and Norm looked at me and he said, Lou is now going to be the chairman of Burger King, because Pillsbury owned our company. Okay. Pillsbury also owned Burger King. And I said, gosh, Lou, I said, boy, we hate to lose you as our president. And Norm looked at me and said, who do you think should be the president of the company? And I said, I've got mentors that helped me along, and I was a young guy. I was 33 years old, basically, and every time he'd say no, and I went through all the officers of the company, and he'd say no, and I said, are you going to bring somebody in from the outside, because our culture is so strong? And he goes, no, I'm not. He said, you're going to be the new president. I said, Norman, I said, I'm blown away. I said, but I'm 33 years old. I didn't graduate. I don't have a college degree. Didn't go to law school, didn't go to Harvard, didn't go to Yale. I don't have an MBA. He goes, that's even better. Yeah. He goes, we need new blood. We need somebody that doesn't have blinders on, come in here and kickstart this thing and get it going again. He said, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to have a meeting, get your head together, the thoughts that you think we need as a company, get all the officers in a room, and the head of operations in a room, talk about the future of the company, what needs to happen in your mind, and get their opinion, their input. So I'm sitting there thinking, and he said, I'll tell you, as they leave the meeting, shake their hand and say, are you on my team? And although you're going to be the youngest one in the room and you've worked for most of them, if they flinch, you got to fire them. Yeah. And I thought, wow, this is the real deal. Yeah. And he said, some of them I went to college with, and some of them probably won't be on your team because they want to be the president. Mm-hmm. I said, I can tell you right now, Norm, I said, we're going to lose the head of Steak and Ale, we're going to lose the head of Bennigan's. And I respect him and love him dearly. He said, so be it. Let's find out what happens. So we had a meeting, and as as things happened, I lost the head of Steak and Ale. I lost the head of Bennigan's. And I called Norman. He happened to be in Argentina playing polo. And I said, well, it happened. And he said, good. He goes, that's fine. He said, now who do you want to put in there? So I brought a guy in named Mike Jenkins who had worked. I'd always had a great respect for Mike. Mm-hmm. Brought him in to run Steak and Ale. And I brought a guy in named Chris Sullivan. And Chris... I'll tell you that name a little bit later because it is a very important name in my life. he ran Bennigan's. And in those days, we had Bennigan's Steak and Ale, Racehorsing, building both of them. We were opening up a restaurant about every 10 days. And,
Wow.
And we had, it was nearly a $500 million company. We had, I think, total of about 35,000 employees all over the country. And thinking about, and also Pillsbury was part of that, scheme. And so I got Chris in the room, and then I got Mike Jenkins in the room, and we kind of got our heads together what needs to happen. And I went to Pillsbury and told them our story and where we were going to take the company. And for the next 3.5 years, we took the company from about $420 million to $750 million in sales, and along with it, the profits.
Yeah.
We were at one time, we were the largest, we were the fastest growing part of Pillsbury. We probably had the best return on investment Pillsbury, and we were the shining star, and they were funding all of our growth, and it was a exhilarating time. So I did that, and that lasted for 3 years, let's say 3.5. And then one day Norm came to me and he said, "Hey, we need another concept." I said, "All right." And he said, "Go out and find one and bring it back and see if it fits." So I got my marketing VP, Ron McDougall, got his opinion. He's a very, very intelligent guy. And we went out and we had lunch at a place in Dallas. It was on Greenville Avenue. And Greenville turned out to be Restaurant Row in Dallas. I'll never forget going in. I'd never been in this little place, and it was serving hamburgers and serving milkshakes and a lot of margaritas. And there were 10 stores they had across the country. And I got to know the chairman, Larry Levine. He was a really intelligent, smart, witty, and had a great palate for America. What they liked to taste. And so I thought, this would be a little company we could absorb and grow. I took it back to Norman. He said, "Gosh, it looks interesting. Let's look at the financials." I did. He said, "Now I want you to go to Pillsbury in Minneapolis and share the story and see if they want to buy it." So I did, and I presented it. And Bill Spoor, who was the chairman of Pillsbury, said, "Hal, sounds like a neat deal, but right now we're trying to buy Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and the multiple is we don't want to mess with the multiple on this thing. So if you can give us 6 months, we'll take another look at it." I said, I think Larry's in play now. I think this company's in play." He said, "Well, we can't do it right now." So about 30 days goes by, and all of a sudden the newspaper heading says this little company sells to Saga Corporation out in California.
Yeah.
Well, that little company was Chili's.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Norm Brinker came, he called me and he said, "Gosh, you were right." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Give me the financials again." So we went through them. About 3 or 4 days goes by, and he came in and he said, let's have lunch today, or breakfast actually. So we had breakfast, and he said, "Hal, I've got great news, and I've got great news." And I went, "Okay, I'll take it." He said, "Well, the great news is you are the new chairman and CEO of what was called S&A Restaurant Corp. You're now in charge of you will be in charge of $1 billion company because they're going to roll Poppin' Fresh Pie shops into you. Also, when they buy Haagen-Dazs, they're going to roll Haagen-Dazs, the dip stores, into you. So it'll be $1 billion company, and you'll be the head guy." And he said, that'll probably be the most powerful job in the United States so far as full service restaurants.
Right.
And I was just beside myself. I said, "Wait a minute, Norman, where are you going?"
Yeah.
He goes, "The guy that owns Chili's, Larry Levine, had a week to make a decision to sign the dotted line." And I talked him into selling it to me, him, Norm Brinker. And I said, "How much did you pay?" And he said, I told him I would take him public within a year. I'd give him X amount of shares. I didn't pay him anything up front. I don't think he did.
Yeah.
And he said, but he said, I promised him I would take him public. I said, "So we're not going to be working together?" He said, "No, now you're a Pillsbury guy.
Yeah.
Now you're the guy." And I had mixed emotions about that because I was 37 years old at that time.
Yeah.
And Pillsbury's a wonderful company. Golly, they treated me like a king. And but I was traveling all over the world, and I was honestly gone all the time, and I had 2 kids and a wife, and I went home one day. She was backing out of the garage, and she said, I can't do this anymore. I've loved you for who you are, and you're not that guy anymore. You're all business. And I got to thinking about it, and I really did feel obligated to Pillsbury as much as I did to my family, which is wrong. And I said, if you'll give me a few months, I'll figure this out, and I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose my kids.
Yeah.
So that few months went by. I got a phone call from Norm Brinker, and he said, are you having fun? And I said, fun is not the word. I'm working hard and I enjoy it, but I'm not having fun. And he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cut your salary in half if you'll come to work as president of Chili's. And he said, but I'm not gonna entice you any more than that, and you have options and things. So versus me just jumping over there, I knew I had to leave Pillsbury. I just had to do it, knowing that I could go to Chili's, but I had another offer here in Oklahoma that I wanted to. It was a kind of start my own business kind of a thing. So I left the most powerful job, and I ended up going to Chili's as president. It was a wonderful experience. Norman and I became very close in our relationship, and along the way, I was making good money, had some good options, and I'd been there quite a while, and we had developed and started rolling out Chili's. I got a phone call from a guy in Louisville, Kentucky, and he said, we need somebody to come in and turn around this company. And I'll tell you what I was making at Chili's. I was making about $200,000 a year, and that was a lot of money for anybody, but for me especially. And I had a car and a few things like that. This guy called and said, we need a turnaround, somebody to help turn around this company. And it was a Mexican food concept called Chi-Chi's. I said, not interested. I'm happy where I am. I'm in Dallas. And I said, I think my wife would kick my rear end if I told her we were going to move again. Yeah. And he said, well, I'll call you back next week. Think about it. So I thought, I'm just going to mess with this guy a little bit. So he called, and I said, here's the deal. I said, I've got to be able to make $1 million a year, and a new car every 2 years, and options, a couple of 100,000 options, and I just throw stuff.
Throwing it out there to just, whatever.
He goes, okay, it's yours. And I went, holy moly. And I said, look, I've got to go talk to the boss. Yeah. And she's home. Yeah. So I go, I'll never forget this. I go in and I said, Sandy? She goes, okay, you've got that look in your eye. What's the deal? And I told her. And I said, it will require us to move out of Dallas and me, leave Chili's and go to Chi-Chi's. And she said, well, what are they going to pay you? And I said, well, I'm going to have the ability to make close to $1 million. She goes, is there a Neiman Marcus there? Yes. So off we went to there, and took about 3.5 years to turn the company and to really being profitable. I had a phone call from Jack in the Box out of West Coast. Mm-hmm. They wanted to buy us. We ended up selling. And I worked as chairman of Chi-Chi's, and I was on the board of directors of Jack in the Box, mm-hmm. and it was great. But I knew, and I told them, I said, look, I'll probably be here a year, maybe a year and a half, and then I want to start my own company. Yeah. So that time went by. I moved back to Norman, and in the process, I got a phone call from Chris Sullivan, the guy that ran Bennigan's. When I left, he was already gone. He was opening up Chili's as a franchisee. Chili's bought him out. Mm-hmm. Then he started his own company. It was called Outback Steakhouse. He called me and he said, once you be my franchisee, I'll give you 5 states. Mm-hmm. You can build 20 stores or whatever. And I said, Chris, it sounds good. So I flew down there to look at the concept, loved it, came back here. I got Hank Kraft, who is my partner, Mike Rogers, who's another partner, and David Brockman, who's my CFO and partner. We're all 4 founders of Hal Smith Restaurants. Hank had already opened up 1 Charleston's, and very successful. Mm-hmm. But we started building, another fellow named Don Elliott came on board from Chili's, and he helped he and another guy named, I throw this out because they were very key, Jeff Alston, helped roll Outback out, and we opened up 19 stores in 3.5 years. Chris knocked on my door one day and he said, "We're ready to buy you out," and it was a $42 million deal. Of course, I had investors and I had banks. I had to pay everybody off, but it still left a nice nest egg for us to grow Charleston's. And you mentioned some of them a while ago.
Yeah.
And I'll run this off. I have to have a cheat sheet because there's just too many.
Yeah.
We have 17 Charleston's, 6 Red Rocks, 4 Mahoganies, 3 Upper Crust, 3 Neighborhood Jams, 1 Hefner Grill, 1 Mama Roja, and that's all under Hank Kraft.
Okay.
And then the next person is another little culture, Brandon Kistler, and he runs the garage. There are 19 of those. Pub W5, Winston's, there's 1. Notorious Pie, there's 1. And that's Brandon's culture. Another culture is Brent Kennedy. Brent Kennedy has all the Louis, and we have 14 Louis. We have 1 El Huevo, and so Brent has 15 restaurants, and that's another culture. And then Ross Crane is my 4th operations head, and he has Toby's, 3 of those, and 2 of them are in casinos, but they're all 3 10,000 square foot plus. So it's a big animal to run. And then he also has Holly's Steakhouse. So with all those, and then I still own 16% of Ted's Escondido, Cafe Escondido. Total of 94 restaurants that I have a part of and part of our company. We have 16 different concepts, and we've elected not to grow internationally, but to stay within our Oklahoma and contiguous states, with the exception of we're in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're in Indianapolis.
Any particular reason?
Yes, when I was with Chi-Chi's, we had a concept called Sharkies that we were experimenting with, and one of them was in Indianapolis. Yeah. And so it didn't work, okay? And so we had a real estate deal there that I had to, and so I called Hank and I said, "Hank, you want to open up another Charleston's?" And he goes, "I sure would." And so that was already in the works, So anyway, we did it that way. And then the reason why I went to Phoenix because my daughter went to Arizona State.
I was going to say, either you like to vacation in Phoenix or just you have family
I
there.
love Phoenix. I just got
beautiful.
back.
Yeah.
I was at Waste Management yesterday at the golf tournament.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to go one day.
Have you been? Is this the first time you've been?
4th time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it just gets crazier and crazier.
There are 250,000 people there
amazing,
that one day.
Yeah.
Just that one day. I've never seen anything quite like it. And you see all kinds. It's a millennial thing. It really is.
Right.
A lot of people, a lot of kids, not kids, but a lot of adults, young adults, dressed to the hilt.
It's like a music festival, right? For golf, with 1 golf hole, and that's it.
Yeah, and I happened to have a banker friend that had a suite overlooking the 16th fairway and green. And when they start booing golfers for missing the green, it's hilarious. So it goes against golf, but in that case, everybody accepts it. It's kind of fun.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why we went to Phoenix, and and I look at it today, and we're coming up with new concepts. We're trying to grow 6 to 8 restaurants a year still. I have quite a few investors, and then we also have some great banks that help us, finance these things. Somebody said, "When are you going to retire?" And I always say to myself, if I don't have a passion for something, and I'm not having fun, get the hell out of it.
Yeah.
You don't need to be there. And I try to teach that, not teach it, but I try to entice people to, if they don't have the passion and the fun, they don't wake up excited about what they're going to do, go do something else.
Right.
And so for the most part, we've got a team of, we've got 7,000 employees, and, we have a team that pretty cohesive, and we're all driven by the same thing, and that's to have fun.
Yeah.
And by the way, make some money along the way, which it seems to have worked,
Yeah.
And people also, they say, what's your philosophy, what do you believe in? And there are several things, but integrity is number one. And no matter if it's my family or the business, integrity is the number one thing. And I mentioned passion. You can overuse that word, but it is a passion that I have. And And a third thing is having a love for people. If you don't love people, basically love people, then you're going to get burned and you're going to run into some real losers. Everybody does. But you also have to know who those are and steer clear of them.
Yeah.
But I basically love people, and that was third. I've been fortunate enough through the years to identify some winners, and have surrounded myself with people a lot smarter than I am, and can do most things better than I can. I can do a lot of things okay, but as long as I have that support of people that are smarter, like this tech, I couldn't set this up for anything. I can run a computer, and I can do my iPad, and I can do my iPhone. I can do all those things, but I have no technical skills. I really don't.
Right.
So, but I do have some really like Stacy you just saw. She's awesome, and she's got a great team. Marketing, I'm pretty good at certain things, but I've got a great marketing team. Finance, accounting, all the above. More important, probably the most important is the operations, day-to-day, grind them out operators. And Hank Kraft, in my opinion, is the best and that I've ever worked with. And we've been together over 30 years.
Yeah.
Which has been quite a ride.
How do you, is Hank Kraft just someone that you just kind of met, just came in, timing was right, you guys ran each other? How do you meet these guys?
We played softball together.
Okay.
In high school, and then in college we played some softball too. We both worked across the street.
Okay.
And I saw how hard a worker he was. And then when he heard I was opening up Cross Timbers, he came to me and he said, "I'd like to be your kitchen manager."
Yeah.
And I didn't have one. And I had a guy named Mitch Seamus, who was the kind of the kitchen manager at the time. Hank learned a lot from Mitch, and then all of a sudden the kitchen was his. And I've never seen anybody more determined to get food out on time, hot, and keep us cool at the same time, dripping sweat.
Right.
And I thought, he's going to be, I want him on my team, and I want to be on his team.
Yeah.
And it's worked that way for a long, long time. And, there was a period of time where he opened up another concept and we weren't together. But later on, when I became president of Steak and Ale, he came on as new concept development.
Yeah.
And he was head of that. And so we've been working together for a long time.
That's really cool.
And it's a brotherly thing. I'm 1 year older, but Hank and I are, we kind of same size, same love, have great families, and we get along great. So, and then David Brockman, when I started here, he was in Louisville, and that's how I met him.
Okay.
His wife was my assistant for 6 years or so, as long as I was there. And I got to know David, and we'd go out and have lunch, and he became CFO of a company, and we became real close. And then when I moved out here, he called me and he said, "How would you like to have Vicky as your assistant and me as your CFO? You get 2 in 1." And I said, "Come on out."
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, "I'll give you a percentage of every store we open up," not knowing we'd have 90-something stores.
Yeah.
But he did, and thank goodness he did, because he's been the guy that he's the glue. Operators kind of have a tendency to get out there a little bit. Not necessarily Hank, but a lot of us do, including me. And David has that vision of keeping people together. And if you want to do something, he'll tell you pitfalls, not squelch the deal, but he'll tell you what you need to think about if you're going to do that. And so the legal side of it, he wears a lot of hats. So I'm bringing him up, and Hank, and of course Mike Rogers is head of all procurement and all pretty much the kitchen design for all of Hank's things. He's been around the block for a long time. So, and he came out of the Houston's group a long time ago. So he had a good training ground. George Beale founded Houston's, and Mike's been super. So the four of us, we might disagree, but we all really, really respect each other and have a brotherly love for each other. It's pretty special.
Yeah.
And if people ask me what is the key, there certain things you learn in life, and you kind of grow up and go, "Why didn't I think of that before?" But procrastination is the worst word in business. And if it's a decision that needs to be made or something that has to be accomplished, do it ASAP. Because if you don't, the stress of everything piling up, of those kinds of things, and procrastination, I learned a long time ago, if it's to be done, do it and get it over with. And that's one thing. The other one is, I mentioned a while ago, is delegation to winners. You can't delegate to losers. You delegate to winners. And then you step back. I asked Norm Brinker one time, I said, what's your key to developing people? He goes, well, first of all, you have to identify who the winners are.
Yeah.
And you do the interview process 3 or 4 times. Really make sure, as much as you can, test them, psychological testing, and we know what they're all about. And then he said, it's like a racehorse. He said, once you find the right thoroughbred, you train. The day comes, you put them on the track. You don't get in front of them. You get behind them. And if they kind of hit the rail, you pat them on the butt a little bit, get them back out here. Never get in front of them and let them run. And let them take the rope. Let them take as far as they can. And if they need your input, tell them to come ask you.
Yeah.
Don't go to them and say, here,
you do this.
So that's the kind of the culture we have is these guys and gals are in important positions because they are winners. And that's just the way it is. So, of all the things I learned, Norm taught me that simple concept. Don't try to do it yourself. When I was a general manager, I tried to do everything myself. I really did. I mean, I had a lot of good waiters and waitresses and bartenders, but I felt like if I wasn't there, the store wasn't going to be run right, and that's a killer. It's a
control thing, I guess, just to maintain the standard. You kind of want to do it yourself.
And most people have that. They don't know it sometimes, but most people have that, and it's hard to delegate and know that you spent the time training, and you feel good about walking away.
Yeah.
So those are kind of some of the things.
No, it's all, and I love how you called each individual has their own restaurant pods. I love how you say culture. Yeah. They have their own cultures. Yeah. And, it, like I said, you've got to be a lover of people. It goes back to you loving people and like I said, making the right decisions of putting winners in the room. And when Norm said to you, you're going to have to fire people and you're going to know straight away and making quick decisions, right? Not having to wait on it. That's, it sounds like Norm was a hell of a guy.
He was the mentor of all mentors, and he practiced what he preached. He didn't say one thing and go do another. Yeah. And he was always there supporting, not leading, supporting as a chairman should. Yeah. And he was an orchestrator. And he coaching, and I learned a lot. I learned everything I really know, most everything I know from him. And unfortunately, he died in a polo accident. I mean, he got critically injured in a polo accident. Was in a coma for quite a while. Came out, and he lived a few years, and we would still have lunch together and everything. And we kept in contact. And he'd call me 6 o'clock in the morning, which was his standard, and he'd go, how's it going, Hal? How's it going, Hal? And I'll never forget those moments. So whenever you have somebody like that's a teacher and believes in you as a young guy, I mean, 33 years old, that's real young. Yeah. Especially if I didn't have a college degree. I mean, it still kind of baffles me a little bit. But it all worked, and the ride has been tremendous. It's been wonderful. I wouldn't change a whole lot, through the years. I still have that, as Norm said, don't ever lose that glimmer in your eye, and that's the passion part of it.
And you said, you're always in the restaurant from a really young age, busting tables, whatever it is, from, age 8. Was it initially a love for food, or was it initially a love for business and the hustle and bustle of how things come together? It's
a combination. Yeah. It really is. I'm a foodie. Yeah. I know I have a good palate. I really do for American. I don't have an exotic palate. Right. But I kind of know what Middle America and America is all about. And I like the food side of it. I also like the alcohol side of it because the flair and the mixing of the drinks. And now that we have upper crust and neighborhood gin, the coffee side of it is really fun to watch too. Those kids back there making the lattes and everything else they make. And so that part of it has always enamored me. The people side of it, I didn't realize at the time what it all meant. Right. But to see a team all of a sudden gel and a concept work, and the second when you open up, wow, it does work. Yeah. Then it's kind of like when Norman called me to ask me if I wanted to come over to Chili's, one of the things he said, we need to instill the culture that we built, Steak and Ale, instill it with the culture that Chili's has, because they had a great culture too. Together, it really was a wonderful thing to see. I mean, I look back and I go, wow. He said, I just want to see if it works. And it did.
Yeah.
So, I think about life. I think about what would have happened if I hadn't chosen this direction. And I can honestly say that I made the right choice.
Yeah.
Without hesitation. The hours are really, really difficult. And especially back in those days, you'd work 70, 80 hours a week and never think anything of it.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't do that anymore. And especially the younger generation coming up, they think of lifestyles more than, how much money am I going to make? I want to be able to go enjoy myself, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
I never really thought that as a real young entrepreneur, but the now generation, and you say millennials, you can say whatever you want. It's a tough generation because their standards. I mean, they have learned a lot more than I learned at their age. I mean, a lot more, and and they know what they're capable of. Now, some of them aren't willing to put in the effort. I got to say, that's every generation. It's every generation. But the ones that do are the best. They are the best I've ever seen. They're so brilliant and so with it. And that's why I'm trying to surround myself, like Norman did, with a lot of young people that bring a different view to the table.
Keep
if
it
I
fresh.
don't, they'll leave me in the dust.
Yeah.
Be fresh, be with it. And we've got a couple other things on the drawing board. We're working on now. My daughter Tracy is my son was one of the co-founders of the Garage.
Okay.
And there are 19 of those.
I love it there.
And he and Brandon Kistler, who I mentioned is the operator, they were both the brains and the guts of the Garage, and this worked out wonderfully. And then my daughter Tracy I guess she has it in her blood too, because she just opened up the first franchised operation of Organic Squeeze.
Okay.
Organic Squeeze out of Nichols Hills, and that group, Whitney McClendon and Robert Rhodes are kind of the cohesive behind the first one. And then Tracy's opened up one here in Norman, and if this works, she's going to open up quite a few of them, I think. So it's all in the family. We kept everything in the family, and I love it. I know that they're working hard out there, and they're supporting their own family.
Who's the best cook out of the family?
My son.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
He's a real gift.
He really he loves to cook, and no matter if it's on a grill or comes up with, he's an Asian. He loves the Asian food and the Asian flair, and so he's always doing the spicy Szechuan chicken and stuff. It's so good. Tracy's got her own. She's more of not a dessert, but she's more health conscious. Okay. And by the way, I have a sweet tooth. How that goes together. It's kind of the way I am, really. And my wife, with all the restaurants we have, we very seldom cook.
Right.
We're out eating every night.
Yeah.
And I try to go to different restaurants, and I try to, I go as a customer, not as president or chairman or whatever. I try to look at it as you would or anybody else walking in, and in so doing, I learn a lot. Instead of going in and trying to pick it apart, I try to find the good things that are happening and the people that are really excited about being a waiter or a bartender, and talk to them and find out why they're happy and why they're liking what they're doing.
Right.
So I still have I look at sales every day for all 94 stores. And I look at the profit and loss statement we do it every 4 weeks. We put out a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet every 4 weeks for every restaurant.
Yeah.
And if you're an investor and we're making money, you get a check every 4 weeks. Instead of waiting until the quarter or waiting until the end of the year, it's instant gratification if it works. And most of them work real well. So that's kind of the way we do it. And we've been able to attract some great investors along the way.
Yeah.
And most people that are in it don't know a thing about restaurants except they know when it's good and when it's not good.
Right.
And that's fine with me because they'll tell me, it was great or it wasn't. And it's kind of the way we learn. But overall, I look at competition. And I don't worry about competition. I've got a couple of instances right now where somebody's going to open up right down the street from me with the same kind of concept. I said, look, guys and gals, if you take your eye off what we're doing and worry about the competition, you won't make it.
Yeah.
And so always do better than you've done yesterday. Try to keep improving. And so far, we've worked it that way. But there's a lot of competition out there. I tell you, the big hurdles, not hurdles, but the challenges, is the workforce, the availability of labor, and with all the competition and the change of attitude toward hours. They won't work more than 40 hours or 45.
Yeah.
Then you have to hire more people. And the quality, I don't know if it's out there for all the people that's required for our industry.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest hurdle. A challenge now, too, is so many people want delivery. They want their food delivered to their door, or they want to have the ability to pick it up without inconvenience.
Yeah.
They want it convenient now, blah. And that's what we're working on right now. You DoorDash and Uber Eats and all, there's myriad of things. We're finally figuring it out, and I would say before the next couple of years are over, I'd say 20 to 25% of our business will be either delivery or takeout.
Wow.
We already have some stores that are nudging that 18, 17%, and I don't see it going away. I really don't. So, good or bad, it's kind of what's happening out there. You sure don't want to build a huge restaurant knowing those facts. You've got to, instead of a 7,000, you've got to slim it down to 5 or 4, and that's what we're trying to do, and be as productive as we can.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Like I said, you're in it all the time. You're looking at, all the data so you can make these changes, as soon as possible.
Right.
And you see it trending that way, and like I said, the Uber stuff, the DoorDash, it's slowly increasing, and that's just how people want, instant gratification. Don't want to wait. The minute we wait a few more seconds for Wi-Fi and we get mad, don't we? Yeah. So that's really cool to see that, and it's really interesting because Oklahoma City's food scene. Everyone talks about it growing over the last few years. There's a lot more restaurant groups opening up concepts all the time. And you've been in this space for a very long time, and like I said, there's always competition coming, regardless of what industry you're in. It's and I really like that you focused on Oklahoma and the surrounding states, because in the positions that you were in growing up and in your leadership roles and all the stuff that you've learned, you could have gone Starbucks style, right, and Howard Schultz style, and just gone, we want a store in every country, every city, and kind of do it that way.
Yeah. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
With Chili's, we were international. Australia, England, we were all over. And it was fine. It was good. But I wanted more personality in it. When you're stamping out a box, and I'm not saying there isn't personality there, but what we do is personal.
Yeah.
It really is. And if there's a niche and a need, we try to fill it. And sometimes we have 2 or 3 of our own restaurants right next to each other, but they all do different things, and they appeal to different day parts. They appeal to different people. Yeah. So that was our choice, and we did it that way, and it's worked so far. And I appreciate that insight, because definitely a choice, that you have to make. Some people say, I'm just going to open up one and be fine, and they are. I could never do that.
Right.
I could not. I feel like if you're not growing, you're going backwards, and sometimes if you look at one restaurant and you grow year to year, improve, that's growth. More sales, more
consistency,
profits, that kind of thing. Or you add on the restaurant because you're doing so much business. A couple of sayings along the way that stick in my head. One said, "If you're not the lead dog, the view never changes."
I like that.
And I thought, yeah, it kind of fits.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
What was another one? Another one was a team is where common people achieve uncommon goals.
Yeah.
And the team is kind of what it's all about, all the way top to bottom. And attitudes in the restaurant start with myself and the founders, and all of us exhibiting what we
Yeah.
feel deep down, and that's really has worked. You know?
Yeah. And you mentioned, it's harder now to find labor, right, for people busting tables and
Yep.
stuff like that. But that's the first people and the first faces that people come into contact with your restaurant.
Yep.
So those people have to be to the level that you want them to be, right? Because you've been through that. You need to have that smiling, greeting face and help you however way you can. How is dealing with that? Having people who they don't want to work more than 40 hours a week. It's a tough job being on your feet all the time.
Normally, what happens is you hire younger people for the front door, for the host or the hostess, and they're there because someday they're going to be old enough to serve a drink and be a waiter or a bartender, and so you get some pretty sharp people at the front door. That's the first and last impression people get.
Yeah.
So far, we've been very fortunate in that. And also, we train. And by the time you get through the training, you don't want to go to another job because you've been trained, and you're making pretty good money. Bussers are there because normally they want to be a waiter. So it's kind of a progression. Once they're a waiter or waitress, and they're successful, I've got a gal here in Norman at Charleston that's been with us nearly 20 years, waiting tables, still waits tables.
Yeah.
And she raised 3 or 4 kids during that whole process. And I've got a lot of people like that. We don't have, if you look at the industry standard, our managers, once they get into management and they become a general manager, we don't lose them.
Yeah.
Very seldom do we lose them, and normally it's just through attrition. They had, health problems or whatever. But we really have been able to keep the stability for by and large for all the managers, and I'm talking about general manager level. It's our job though to spot the winners and the losers, and if they're not going to make it, you got to let them know up front they just don't have what it takes. And if they are, some of our best hires, most of our best hires are internal. We'll see somebody that's really, really good waiter or really, really good bartender, and we go talk to them about what have you thought about what you're going to do after college, or even now if they're out of college. And we just had one guy that he's a teacher, and he just came to me one day and he said, I don't want to teach anymore. I'd sure like to go to work. And so we're putting him to work, and those kind of things. And that's you keep your eye out for the people that are are going to succeed no matter what they do.
And it goes back to the people, loving people, and proving that the stats don't lie. You prove that people love to work here. You have a great culture, and it goes back to the days when you're in Detroit and your son's in the hospital and you're having some difficulties and you've got to pay for everything yourself.
Yeah.
And what Norm did for you that day, that speaks to everything. Like I said, everything that you do from there on.
Yeah.
You always treat people with great respect, whatever they need, and that gives you the culture you have.
It's exactly right, and it all started with Norm Brinker and kind of his style. And I asked him point blank when I got to the corporate office. I said, "Golly," I said, in our restaurants and corporate office, you've got all these young people that you trust." And he goes, "Damn right." He goes, those are the people that'll push our company to the top. And he said, "Don't ever be afraid to hire people that are younger than you are and smarter than you are." And I've really had that attitude. And when I say love people, I truly do. I truly have that passion in my love in my heart for people in general.
Yeah.
All you have to do is turn on the TV and see what's happening in the world. And if we don't have a lot of people with that sparkle or that loving, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so it's sometimes demoralizing a little bit because you go, "Golly, what are they thinking?"
Yeah.
And then you see the new virus coming across. It's scary. It really is scary. But one of my philosophies is don't worry about the things you don't have any control over. Think about them, be concerned, what can I do to help, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, you can't let it stack up. And there's a book that I read, I love to read, and there's several books along the way when I was a lot younger. This guy named Stephen Covey, he was a professor out of Brigham Young.
Okay.
He was a Mormon, had about 9 kids, wonderful man. And he used to come give his speech and presentation and teach us about the about the whole person and how to be a better leader. And his book he wrote several, but the one that was most impactful to me were the 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person. And to read that over and over we all did, it really is ingrained on the 7 habits that you really have to have.
Yeah.
And then that was one guy. And then Ken Blanchard in those days had the 1 Minute Manager, and that was kind of a neat twist on things. And I read that, and it was good. A couple other guys, wrote books. There was a guy, I can't remember his first name, but last name Nonkens, and he was a German fellow, and the name of his book was something like "Get the Monkey Off Your Back."
Uh-huh.
And it was so true what he was telling us. He came and gave a presentation. He said, "How many people have people walking in their office anytime and spilling their problems to you?
Yeah.
Wanting you to make the decision how to solve it." He said, "Get them out of there." He said, "Listen, say, now then, I want to hear what your decision is going to be. Here's my input.
Right.
Go make your decision. Don't ever let that monkey on your back." That was that book. And so, you read all these things, and I just got through reading one, golly, what was it called? Shut Up and Listen.
Yeah.
And that's a good book. That's a real good book. The guy owns the Houston Rockets. And he did it. That was a well-written book, and it also very, very timely. A teaching of Stephen Covey was also seek first before being understood.
Okay.
And it's simple, but if you're trying to get your point across and you don't understand the other person's point of view, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So he said, sit back, listen, understand the other person before you want them to understand you.
Uh-huh.
Big lesson to be learned, and I still don't. That's still hard,
Yeah, of course.
Because I want to tell. I got my opinion, and I want. It's my opinion. But if I try to keep a balance in my life. A balance being 3 different things. One is me, which is physical and mental. And read, and I do the stock market. I keep my mind going every day. Try to do it as much as I can.
Yeah.
Try to keep in shape as much as I can. That's hard when you're in the food business. And,
you're right.
I love wine. I drink wine.
But
but bottom line is, if that temple is in good shape, and you know where you are mentally and physically, and then your family's in good shape. You spend a quality time and you love each other. You really tell each other how much you love and how much you depend on each other, and you communicate that. If those 2 are in tune, your business world is going to be a lot better. Mm-hmm. So many people start with a business world, and then these 2 fall apart, and then this falls apart.
Right.
I've just seen it happen so many times. I've tried not to do it, and I think if I hadn't shifted gears back in those days, I would have lost my wife and kids. And to think about that, I've been married 48 years in March. So it's been a long time, and we are dear friends and still dear lovers, and the whole deal. It's just wonderful. But you have to step back and go, what have I learned? Don't ever say I've arrived.
Right.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't ever arrive. And what can I do better for my family? What can I do better for me? And I'm always trying to. And my wife's always telling me, she's got this thing pegged pretty good, and she's always saying, "Hey, wait a minute, get back over here. You're getting too far out there," which I like. I like somebody with a different slant on life, and she is so. Sandy is her name, and she is so buttoned up, and she is so. How do you say it? Everything, she's so organized. Everything has its place. Yeah. And I'm not that way.
That's why
I knock everything off the shelf, and I drop stuff on me and everything.
Yeah.
And people pick, like David Brockman picks up the pieces as I go along. Well, she picks up the pieces on the family side and on my life. And thank God I've got some people like that I get to look at the world as a vision,
right?
And go for it like a big old bull in a china closet. And sometimes you knock dishes off the shelf and somebody catches them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they don't. But at least you have somebody that's paying attention, And I've got several of those, and it's a tit for tat, Because I've got some things that my wife is not that good at, and she's not necessarily the orator, but boy, she understands people and she reads people real quick, and in her own way, simulates that and knows who's good and who's bad, who to hang with and who not to, and so anyway, it's been to me one of the keys to where we are today is my marriage and my family and the fun we have.
Is that where kind of the golf comes in? You guys play a lot of golf together?
We try to. I've had a shoulder problem and I haven't been able to play, but I'm now over it, and I'm waiting on the weather. Yeah. We just got back from, like I said, from Phoenix, and she played every day. Yeah. I didn't play. I was out there doing a little work, and I also went to the golf tournament and did some things. Yeah. And we went out to eat every night at some competition and kind of finding out what's going on. But if you kind of look at what matters and what doesn't matter in life, being able to wake up and no matter what your success level, doesn't matter. People judge their own success differently. Everybody's different. I look and I'm happy with who we are as a company, and I'm happy with my family. I'm happy with me. Yeah. But not so happy that I don't really. I'm competitive with myself, and I want to win.
Always striving to be better.
Try it. I want to win, and winning is keeping care of everything. Keeping track. It's a motivator. I can tell you that. Yeah.
So you both had a lot of fun this weekend, then, past weekend down in Arizona.
We had so much fun, and that tournament, that waste management tournament, there was 250,000 people at that one day. Yeah. And there were probably 15,000 on hole number 16, and I happened to be in a suite, not suite, but it's outdoor, but it's still, you get to look down and
it's a stadium, isn't it?
It is a stadium. It's completely surrounded, and the golfers walk through this little tunnel to get to the green. Right. And if they don't hit the green, then they boo. It's part of that the whole thing. But it's a lot of fun. Yes, we had a great time. I wish I was still there. Yeah. But I had to get back and talk to you.
Well, I appreciate you coming back. Have you ever thought about, I guess, playing in? Is it quite hard to get into the Pro-Am down there? I assume it is. Have you ever thought about kind of pursuing that?
No, I don't. Toby Keith did it. Yeah. And he's a partner of mine in a lot of these restaurants and some of the other things. Haven't really done it. I've been in Pro-Ams. I did the Pro-Am at Colonial in Dallas, Fort Worth. I did that several years, and I really enjoyed it. I did it at Las Colinas one year. Did it in Louisville, Kentucky at the country club there. They had a big tournament every year, and I got to play with some really, really neat pros. Yeah. But I've never thought about the one. I don't even know if I'd want to.
Yeah, I don't think I could put my ball on the tee bag on 16.
You get nervous, especially if you're not a real good golfer. They'd be booing me to death. I can hit it a long way. I just never know where it's going. One of those kind of deals. Yeah. But I love golf, and we try to. When I'm playing, our favorite is Sunday afternoon. Just go out for. If it's an hour, great. If it's 4 hours, great. And that's the best time. Because if you start at 2 and you end at 5 and 5 or 6, right? Nobody's out there. It's special.
Yeah. Obviously a big OU fan. Went to OU for a bit.
One of the reasons I moved back to Norman, it wasn't I thought Sandy was going to go, let's go to Dallas, okay, because we had a lot of fun there. She goes, why don't we move back to Norman? Because I call Norman home, she calls Norman home. Yeah. And we were both born other places, but we spent most of our lives here. And the minute I got back, I tried to become part of the university. Mm-hmm. And we give time, we give food, we give money, and we're big supporters of the athletics. I've gotten to know Bob Stoops real well, Lincoln Riley real well, Lon Kruger, Sonny Galloway when he was here, Kelvin Sampson, and Joe Castiglione of all of them. He's been so nice and such a great breath of fresh air for a university like Oklahoma. He's made some wonderful hires, and I've been fortunate enough to meet these people as they came on board. Yeah. Joe would set me up and I'll tell you right now, Bob Stoops is a big investor of ours. And his sidekick, Matty McMillan, is a big investor. And a lot of them were. I don't think they would mind me saying that because it's been fruitful. I mean, it's been successful. But I have really enjoyed being part of the university, and I was given an award not too long ago by Lincoln Riley, and it was called the seed sower.
Okay.
And it's the guy, I don't know if you've ever been on the campus, but it's a guy throwing seeds to plant the crop.
Yeah.
And they got a huge bronze statue of him on there. Well, they gave me a bronze statue about that big, and it caught me off guard. And as my contribution, they said for your contribution to the university, and I brought some real tears to my eyes, you know. But I've loved OU since I was a little kid because my father would take me to the ball games down in Dallas. We'd go to Texas OU when I was a little bitty boy, 5 years old, 6 years old. We'd ride the train down there and go to the game and get on the train and ride back. And those were wonderful days. So I never lost that love. It's kind of like soccer for you, I'm sure. I don't know if you're a big soccer fan.
Yeah. Growing up, it's life back in the UK for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And once it's there in your blood, it is. I still, and some of my friends will boo me on this one, but I'm a big fan of OSU.
Yeah.
We gave a substantial contribution to their hotel and restaurant school, and Mike Gundy and I have become friends. He's a great guy. Mm-hmm. And then Mike Holder stopped by and introduced himself. He's the athletic director. So, and an investor. I mean, Mike's an investor. So all of it's worked out, and I root for OSU as long as they're not playing OU. I'm a big OSU fan.
Yeah.
And Texas, I'm not going to say too much about
I keep that. But I mean, they've especially recently with golf, OSU won a couple of years ago, and then OU won, a couple of years before that. It's, it's great to have that golfing history as well in the state, especially, you have Matt Wolf, you have Hovland, Quade Cummings is coming up from OU, Abraham Anser, who graduated from OU, is doing very, very well. As a golfer myself, it's great to see that, isn't it? Great to see them
we had a great golfer here too that was on the national championship, Anthony Kim.
Yeah.
And he and I have become friends, good friends. I used to play poker with him. I used to do some things. And then I was going to be an investor in one of his projects, and that didn't happen, but still might. But that was a loss to the golf world that he dropped out of golf, because he could have been, he knows it too. He could have been but he got hurt, got injured, and couldn't play much. And, but you're right. OSU was the main golf school for years and years and years, and they still have a good team, most times. And then OU, same way. OSU used to be the basketball king. I mean, for years, and wrestling. Yeah, they still are wrestling. I mean, they're top of the world. OU gymnastics. There's not many people beat OU in gymnastics. Yeah. And so people forget about those sports, but we do win national championships. Mm-hmm. Tennis, we won a national championship a couple of years ago. So, but anyway, it's been a lot of fun. I keep up with all the OU doings.
Yeah. Do you still go to OU Texas every year?
No, about 5 years ago, I realized I'd been 30-something times, and my wife. We have a little cabin at Lake Texoma, which is halfway in between. So we installed a TV. We get in the pool, heat the pool, get in the hot tub or whatever it is. TV drops down, and we're right there.
Best place to see it.
It's awesome. I don't have to worry about traffic or anything else. So that's what we do every year.
That's great.
And normally it's pretty good weather, and we play golf, on the other days. But going down there is fun, and it was a ritual, a habit, I guess, a ritual. And then all of a sudden I woke up and I went, it's not as fun as it used to be. You got old or something.
Stuck in traffic and all the rest of it, more of a hassle than
especially 11 o'clock game on Saturday after a Friday night party. Yeah. It's not fun.
It's a sore head, isn't it?
You're sitting there in 100-degree weather, sweating,
Yeah.
Quit being fun.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough for just the time, the stories that you have. I'm sure you have a lot more, and hopefully one day we'll get to those as well. I noticed you were inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. I was.
That was the thrill. Yeah. When they called me and told me that I was being nominated, and it wasn't a for sure thing, and that was enough for me that I'd be considered. And then when I found out, Lee Allen Smith called me and said, "You're in." And Lee Allen and I have been friends for, 50 years.
Yeah.
And he's the number one fundraiser in Oklahoma, at least in my opinion. And when that all happened, and then Barry Switzer introduced me, and I got to share a little of my story and my background of Oklahoma, my love for Oklahoma. Quite a special time. It really was. I can't tell you enough. I still step back and go, did that really happen? More than anything in my life, did that really happen?
Yeah.
And it did. So anyway.
Yeah, just from growing up in Ardmore and coming all this way, and now, like I said, you make that list, and
Doesn't get better.
It's impressive, and I'm excited to see the growth that's coming. Like the kids' new concepts that are opening up, right? All these things. Hopefully one day I'll get to taste some of the food that your son cooks, because if he's the best one, then I got to try some of that.
I'll put you on my list for being a taste tester.
I would love to do that. Yeah, sign me up.
We do a lot of that, and I need people that are. Excuse my tear. I teared up a little bit. We have a lot of people that come in for. I'm going over and tasting hamburgers tomorrow at El Huevo, which is our Mexican / American, and going over there for a taste test tomorrow. But I always try to get people that are unrelated to the restaurant industry that give me their true feedback.
Yeah.
So if you're ever available, I would love that. I'll send you an invite and you can come in.
That'd be great.
Because that's some of the fun times, is getting it ready, getting it to the point that we know it's going to work, and ship it out.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I can't thank you enough for your time. Excited to see what's coming. You've done so much, but I'm sure you have so much that you plan to do, and so much more that you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's golf trips that you want to go on, and places you want to play. So really, thanks for your time. And I'll post, everyone listening, I'll post all the links below and links to Hal's website. Is there anything, I guess, that you would say to any young person that's wanting to get into the industry? What would be the best thing for them now?
The best thing is, don't be afraid to work. I mean, you've got to pay the price to be successful. And a lot of people don't do that. They think it's going to happen overnight. Mm-hmm. They look at me and go, wow, and I'm saying 50 years. It's been in the making for 50 years. And so I try to say, yes, you can accomplish, yes, you can be whatever you want to be, but it will take a lot of hard work, a lot of determination, a lot of ups and downs, and that's the main thing. It's not a rose in the sky, it's not a cherry pie. It's real life, And but if you do have that passion, you do have that love, and you do learn, you can be whatever you want to be in this business, you really can. And there's always, what's happening now, and how much time you have, but what's happening now is health. So many of these young people especially are really working out a lot more than the older generation did, and eating better, trying to eat better. And it's like organic squeeze. That, and then I put a plug in for my competitor, but I just went to a concept in Phoenix called Flower Child.
Okay.
And for whatever it's worth, that's kind of where it's happening. Yeah. And it's a fast casual, healthy foods. And I ate 4 or 5 different items: tomato toast, and I could name them all. Yeah. Cauliflower, curry. So anyway. That is happening out there, and if people are wanting to get into a new segment, it's pretty new. It really is not overbuilt, and if you do it right, it can be successful.
And to that point, we've had kind of like the increase of plant-based food, right, and vegan diets, and all these other vegan diets or whatever it is. So I'm sure that for you as a research point is great to look into that new market, and there's obviously a lot of opportunity there as well. Yeah, there really, really are, and it's changing every day. It is, and this plant-based is real. Yeah, and I thought it was a fad at first, and now it's not. All you have to do is look at Beyond Meat, and see what their stock's doing. It's gone crazy, and there's a real need out there. There's a real niche out there. It hadn't gone as crazy as Tesla. True. Wow. Yeah. That's been a surprise. Yeah. Not really. I own a Tesla. It's the best car I've ever had. I love American cars, but if you're going to go
something other than American. That's electric is pretty special.
Yeah.
It really is.
Is there anyone, I guess, like Norm was such an inspiration and such a mentor of yours. Where else do you look for inspiration and mentorship? You said you read every day, and that reminded me of Warren Buffett reads every day, and he's always doing that. Is there anyone else you really kind of look to?
At my age, it's different.
Yeah.
At my age, I say to myself, if I don't kind of know what's going on and know what philosophy I have and know what my faith is, I know my hot buttons and more than anybody else.
Right.
And as long as I stay in tune with reality, reading is my answer.
Yeah.
There are some people out there, I can name off people right now in my industry that I like to emulate. I'm not going to tell them who they are,
yeah.
but I do. I watch them. I watch them on the internet. I watch what they're doing. I watch the new concepts. And we go visit. And we get ideas. And we come back and try to make it a little different, a little better, or whatever. So I can name off some names that are not necessarily mentors, but are, in my book, top of the class.
Yeah.
And there are 4 guys that I have right now that I watch everything they do.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I grow and how I get better.
Uh-huh.
I also have 2 or 3 buddies that we grew up in the industry together, Chris Sullivan being one, that from time to time we'll hook up or get on the phone and how do you see the world today? And they always come at it a little differently than I do, but truthfully, that's what their take is, and that's always inspirational. Know that they're still clicking, they're still working it, and we're all about the same age and still at it.
Is there anything that Gary Keller wrote a book, The One Thing, right? And you just pick one thing and that's all you do. You go at it with everything you have. And that's kind of what you've done with the restaurant industry. Is there anything that just piques your interest that you got into, or you just happy to just do that one thing and stick to restaurants?
Other than restaurants?
Yeah. Anything that just sparks?
I would have loved to have been a professional athlete.
Yeah.
I played football, basketball, golf, whatever. I ran track, and I always thought, the reality was I wasn't near good enough to do it. And and thank God. The other thing I love to sing.
Okay.
And play a guitar.
All right.
And I've got 2 guitars in my office, and people aren't around. I pick them up and play. And I at parties, they'll ask me to sing a couple of songs, and I do Roy Orbison, the Rolling Stones, and all that kind of, that genre.
Yeah.
And that's fun, So if I could have been, a professional singer, it would have been. And I watched Toby. Toby's Toby, and there's nobody like him. But I watch him, and I know him pretty well. And I go, golly, I see the good things, and then all of a sudden I realize he's got to get on a plane every dadgum week and go sing somewhere, same songs, over and over. I don't know if I could do it, but he's really good at it. I got to give it to him. Plus, he's made a hell of a living. People love him. So those are the 2 things. So far as going to work and 9-to-5 job, nah, that's not me.
Would you go on stage with him if he asked you to?
Yeah.
Yeah, and play?
I would.
Yeah, play the guitar for him?
I would. I'm afraid he might.
He's gonna. Hopefully, he hears this one day.
He's smarter than that.
Yeah.
But we sang "Pretty Woman" together one time at a restaurant, and I also got a chance to sing with Vince Gill one time.
Okay.
At a party.
Yeah.
"Pretty Woman," and Roy Orbison's got a high voice, and I have a tendency to be a higher voice.
Okay.
And Toby looked at me like, where does that come from?
Where does that come from?
And so did, as a matter of fact, Vince Gill said something to me, and he goes, I should have known better and to get this. I wanted at an auction, the DVD with Vince Gill. So he said, what do you want to sing? Thinking I'm going to say a Vince Gill song. I said, "Pretty Woman." He went, here we go, So we started singing. Afterwards, he said, I should have known better than bringing an Okie up here to sing. He goes, everybody in Oklahoma can sing, So, but it's been a lot of fun.
That's
There's David
fantastic.
Brockman right there. He's my partner.
That's awesome.
But anyway, those are the 2 things, And it'd be fun.
Do you try to go to a lot of live music shows?
I do. I'm going to the Eagles down in Dallas in March. I just went to. I was going to see Miranda Lambert in Phoenix. I didn't get a chance to do it. But I go to a lot of concerts, and I've seen a lot of country and western too. I saw George Strait the other night. That was in Las Vegas, and he's special.
Yeah,
he has 60 #1 songs, and he sang a lot of them.
Right.
I got to see Michael Jackson when he was alive. I had a chance to see the Beatles, and I didn't take it. I should have. Looking back, I didn't think the Beatles were going to be anything.
Yeah.
And but I saw Elvis Presley. Mm-hmm. That was in 1971. And it's a funny story on that one. I was working short time. I worked for Coca-Cola.
Okay.
I was in their training program, going to be a manager of a Coke plant.
Yeah.
Because a friend of mine, Steve Brown, his dad would own the Coke plant. So I had a uniform, green pants, green striped shirt, Coca-Cola. So I was back home visiting my mother and dad, and I'm sitting there watching TV. I said, Elvis Presley's playing at the fairgrounds in a 10,000 square foot stadium. And I went, boy, I'd like to see him. And I thought, I'm going to try something. So I put on my Coke uniform, and I got a brown sweater.
Yeah.
And I put it underneath my arm, and I knocked on the door, delivery door in the back. I'm ringing the doorbell, and this guy opens up. He goes, yeah, can I help you? And I go, Coca-Cola, I just got a phone call, and I'm supposed to fix your Coke machine. I'm lying, I thought, wow, this might work. And he goes, yeah, come on in. Well, he was busy, so I just walked right through the kitchen, went to the bathroom, put on a brown sweater over my Coca-Cola shirt, found a folding chair right outside the kitchen, carried it down the hallway, put it at the top of the stairs, and sat there and watched Elvis Presley. He had a white jumpsuit, real big man. In those days, he was way overweight. Still sounded good, and the women are still screaming, and all that. But that was a thrill. Yeah, I like live shows.
Yeah. So I know before we started recording, you mentioned Tom Jones.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Tom Jones sing?
No, I never did.
No?
I was in Vegas working for a while, and Tom played
his
there,
residency,
and I never got a chance. I wish I had a. Doggone it.
Yeah.
I did see Celine Dion the other day, not the other year.
Yeah.
And she was great. But Tom Jones, I've always liked his music, and he had the girls screaming.
He was the ladies' man, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. You've had a lot of talent come out of Wales.
Yeah, there's some talent. Yeah, some actors and a lot of singers.
Where's the guy that's got the heavy beard? Not heavy beard, but you can tell if it grew out a lot, it would really be heavy, isn't it? Golly.
I'm trying to think.
I don't know if he's from Wales.
Is he an actor?
No, he's from Ireland.
Who is that?
I can see him right now. He was just on TV at a talk show. He was on the Ellen DeGeneres show. I can't remember his name. If I heard it, I'd say yes. But anyway, thinking he was from Wales. He's got a pretty heavy accent, though.
Shirley Bassey was from Wales. She's a singer.
Really?
Shirley Bassey, yeah, she's a singer.
I never knew that. I thought she was an American.
Mm-hmm. And then, the internet's telling me that Roald Dahl was one as well.
Who?
Roald Dahl. I guess he's the writer, Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
He was Welsh. People I didn't even know were Welsh, right? Catherine Zeta-Jones, Anthony Hopkins.
Was he from Wales?
Another Welsh one, yeah.
One of the greatest actors ever.
Very, very good. It's and now you have me talking about Oklahoma.
Well, there you go.
Right.
Not
that I'm on that list.
American citizen?
I am. I married my beautiful wife here. She grew up here, and she actually worked for Outback. Okay. She went to Norman. She went to OU for a year and worked down at one of the stores down there. So it would have been 2012, 2013, maybe. 12 and 13, maybe.
Yeah, I'd already sold them.
Yeah. She was down there.
I think I sold them in 94, probably 98, something like that.
Yeah. Is for you, what's next? What's?
Well, for me, keep on keeping on and cultivating someone to step in my place and really, really take it and run with it. And I've already had, people
been grooming people to do it. Yeah.
I don't do any more than I want to now. Honestly, I've got a home in Phoenix and a place in Colorado, Lake Texoma, and here, and we like to have our time and get away, and a lot of times just Sandy and I get away, because it's get away from the hustle and bustle. But what's next is I just like what I'm doing, and I like it even more now that I've got people that if I'm here, great. If I'm not, no big deal.
Yeah.
And that's a good feeling. You know?
Yeah.
I was gone 5 days. Nobody even knew I was gone. You know?
Yeah.
And this, quite honestly, this office is not conducive to an open air office. It's a lot different, but it's going to take me a little while to get used to.
Yeah. You've been in here, since 2 or 3 weeks, right? Hasn't been long.
Yeah. We don't have any pictures. We don't have any decor or anything yet. I'm still waiting on my desk, you know, so.
Yeah.
But when you get through, I'll take you and show you where my office is. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's not open, you know. And I kind of I'm going to have to make a point to go around and visit all the offices every week. Just make a tour. How y'all doing? You know, that kind of thing. I had a girl Mandy stopped by a while ago, and she said, "I don't see you anymore," you know, and because I used to walk by her office every day and say hello and without that, I've got to make an effort to keep it going. Yeah.
I'll finish with this. Do you have anything that's just like a prized possession? Do you have anything that stands out?
Wow.
Anything that, it doesn't have, it's just personally to you, it's a...
Yeah. I grew up in the rock and roll era, and I collected guitars. Mm-hmm. And I've got a real Roy Orbison signed guitar. I've got a real Eric Clapton signed guitar. I've got Toby and Vince and Reba, all different guitars. I've got the Rolling Stones when they played here. Personally signed a guitar for all 4 of them.
Yeah.
And that plus the Roy Orbison, so far as possessions go, I'm proud of that. You know, because they actually signed it. You know, and so many of them are counterfeit. You know, you don't know. These definitely are. Because I'd hand them to them, you know.
That's the thing. You have that memory of going back there and being in that moment and watching them hand sign your guitar.
Actually, Steve Owens was the guy that got it signed for me, so I have to give him credit.
That's awesome,
Yeah, he's awesome.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. Great to meet you. Glad we could do this, and hopefully one day, if shoulders improves, we can hit the golf course. And
you're going to taste my food.
And I'm going to taste the food for sure. So
thank you, bud. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Hal's got an amazing story. Clearly loves his music as well, and the Elvis story is pretty awesome too. But yeah, as you know, like Hal's done so much for the state. Continues to do so much for the schools, Oklahoma State. And obviously a huge fan of OU as well, living in Norman and having his office in Norman. So definitely go over. I'm sure you've eaten at his concepts before, but now at least you know a little bit more about the story, a little bit more context. And everyone I've spoken to that's worked for him in the past or continues to work for him just loves being there and loves that they promote from within. So definitely worth going and checking him out or checking out his new concepts that are coming out. I'll definitely tell you how the food tasting is going to go. Really excited about that. And yeah, hopefully I get to play golf with him one day. I'll definitely update you guys on that as well. So don't forget, this episode, thankfully, to my new partner, was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoman's story through its people since 1927. Go follow them on Instagram. They've got some amazing information, a lot of cool up-to-date stuff. They're always posting information on Hall of Famers and events and stuff like that. A great wedding venue as well. So go follow them on Instagram at OklahomaHOF, and then on the website for a lot more information, oklahomahof.org. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.